gonna. That's Hashem. Today's daf is daf Nun Ches 58 in Masechta Gittin. We're going to start from daf Nun Zayin Amid Beis. About, let's say, I would say like 12 lines from the when the lines get wide on Nun Zayin Amid Beis. Amma Rav Yehuda, Amma Shmuel. Okay, maybe like 14 lines. Amma Rav Yehuda, Amma Shmuel. Now the Gemara is going to begin here with a story, a tragic story, but we got to pay attention to every word of the story. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel, B'Tamer Rab Ami. Rav Yehuda said in the name of Shmuel. Some said Rab Ami said over the story. V'Ami Law, and others say B'Masnita Tana. This story was told over in a brisa. What is the story? Ma'aseh B'Dalad Meis Yeladim V'Yeladei Shnishbu L'Kolim. There were 400 boys and girls that were held, that were taken into captivity to be used for prostitution. So the girls you could understand for prostitution, and for the boys it's sodomy. So it's mishkav zachar. Hegishim ba'atzma lamahin misvakshim. So the boys and girls, they were on this in jail together, and they felt, they understood what they why they are being taken into captivity. Amru, they said, and they were on a boat apparently. So Amru, and they said, Im anu toivim b'yam, if we jump into the water and drown ourselves. They were questioning, Anu bayin l'chaya olam haba, will we enter the next world? In other words, we have a rule that if you commit suicide, there is no nobility for committing suicide, because that's something that's usher. But they felt that we don't want to humiliate ourselves for this avera, for this sin. So Darish len hagodol shebehem, the oldest one, the leader of the group, the Lahavdil in the Warsaw Ghetto, the leader of the group gave a drasha, gave a speech, and he said, Amar Hashem, he knew Chumash, he knew Tanakh. Amar Hashem, miboshan ashiv mimtzulas yam. I'm going to return you. I'm going to return you from Bashan and from the depths of the sea. Miboshan ashiv, mibein shinei ari. Anybody who's devoured by the teeth of a lion, that means his body is mauled, and he didn't get a normal burial, or Ashav Mimtzulas Yam, or somebody drowned Layalenu in the depths of the sea. Elu Shetayvim Bayam. God says that we believe that there will be Tchiyas Amesim for these people, and they will get to Olam Haba. I guess they were thinking to themselves, if we're not going to go to a normal kvura in a cemetery, so then, our bodies are going to be like turned into ashes. So are we going to get up for Tchiyas Amesim? So that's what the pasuk says. God says that no matter how you died, if you're worthy of it, God's going to put you back together, and you'll be Zoicha for Tchiyas Amesim, which is Olam Haba. So Kevin Sheshamo Yeladas Kach, when the girls heard this speech from this leader, Kafzu Kulam, all the girls jumped, V'naflu Sachiyam, and fell into the ocean. So the boys made a kal v'chomer and said, V'amru, they said to themselves, if the girls can do it, we're going to also commit suicide. A girl who doesn't suffer humiliation so much for prostitution, the girls gave their life up. So we who suffer much more humiliation for this act, certainly we should have the courage enough to give our lives up. So the boys also jumped into the sea and of course drowned. And this the pasuk says in Tehillim, for your sake we kill ourselves each and every day. We are considered like sheep taken to slaughter. That's a pasuk in Tehillim. So remember that pasuk. We're killing ourselves for God every day, and that's that hinted to that pasuk of the boys and girls that collectively committed suicide, not to commit a grave act. Rabbi Yehuda says there's another story that's reflected in that pasuk. Zu Isha v'Shiva B'nah, the story of the woman with the 7 kids. Asu l'kama the kesa. They brought each boy in front of the Roman emperor. So this woman had 7 children. And they were being tested, are they going to give up their religion and serve Avodah Zarah? Amr Lei, they said to the first son, Plach la Avodah Zarah, bow to the Avodah Zarah. Amar Lahu, he said, Ksuba Torah, it says in the Pasuk, Anochi Hashem Elokecha, God is one. I'm your God. I can't bow to Avodah Zarah. Abkuhu v'ketlu. They took him out and killed him. Apparently, his mother looked on. Vaisuyu leidach. They brought the second child, Lakami the case, in front of the Roman emperor. Amar lei. So they said to this kid, Plach l'Avodah Zarah. You should serve Avodah Zarah. Amalahu. He said, Ksubatar. Doesn't pasuk says, Lo yiyeh lecha Elohim acherim al panai. You should not have another God in my presence. He brought a pasuk. The Chumash says doesn't allow him to do avodah zarah. Kuhu v'katlu. They took him out and killed him. Asuyuhu liidach. They brought the third kid. Amrulei. They told him plach l'avodah zarah. Serve avodah zarah. Amalahu. He says in the pasuk sibatar. The pasuk said zoveach lo elikim yacharam. Kuhu v'katlu. They killed him. Asu liidach. They brought the other son. Amalu plach l'avodah zarah. Serve avodah zarah. Amalu ksib batar l'shtach el acher. They took him to kill. Now, they brought, I think, the fifth son. They killed him. They brought the sixth son. They told him serve avodah zarah. He said, so each one did not want to commit the act of serving of idolatry, and they gave up their life. Apku v'katlu. Finally, this is asuli idach. They brought the seventh son. Amrlu plach l'avodah zarah. Serve, bow to this avodah zarah. Amrlu, he said, ksiv b'Torah as Hashem hamarta Hashem hamir chayim. Kvanishbanu lakadosh baruch hu shein onu ma'virun oisei be'elacher. He said that we have a oath taken to the God that we're not going to exchange him for another God. And God took an oath that he's not going to exchange us for another nation. So he said, I'm tied up to God and I'm not going to serve another idol. Amalei Kesa. So the Caesar said, and the Caesar wanted to look, at least he got one kid to give up his religion. So he said, Eshtech lokal gushpanki, ugchan. I'm going to throw my signet ring down, and you come, bend down, and pretend you're picking it up. So you're not serving the idol; you're just bending down to serve me. So people should say that you're not serving idols, but you're serving me as the king, and that way your life will be spared. So that's why he wanted to do the kid a favor. Amalei, so the child answered, Chaval Allah Caesar, woe is to you, or curse you out, you Caesar, Chaval Allah Caesar, you're only concerned about your glorified ego. Should not I not be concerned about the honor of God? So he refused that offer, to spare his life, not to bow to idols, but just to bow to the king. And as if he's picking up the king's signet ring on the floor, but he even refused that. So because people will think that he's bowing to the idols. Abkuhu, they took him out, Lemikdalei, to be killed. So this is the seventh boy that's being taken out to be killed in front of their mother. Amrulu le'ime, so the mother said to the executioners, Yahivuhu nihilai ve'enashke purta. Give him to me a little bit, I just want to give him a kiss. Amrulai, so they told him, Amrulai, she told her son the final words. Bonai, my child, when you get up there and after you're being killed, L'chu v'imru Avram avichem, go tell Avram your father, your grandfather, your ancestor, Ato ikatem mizbeach echad, that you tied your son on one, did the Akedah for one child, V'ani akati shiva mizbechais, and I gave up and bounded and gave up seven altars for the God. In other words, I gave up 7 kids. And then the pasuk said, and then the Gemara continues and says that after this story, Af he also lagag v'naflo mesa. She went up to the roof and committed suicide. Now this is questionable, even though she saw all her 7 children being killed in front of her eyes, but she committed suicide. So it's not clear if she was going to get olam haba. A voice from heaven came out, said, Aim habanim smecha. The mother of these kids will be happy in the next world. I guess they gave her a pass for what she did, all things considered, her psyche at that time. So Aim habanim smecha, that she was zeicha to olam haba. Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yeshua ben Levi Amar. Rabbi Yeshua says, Levi says, the pasuk that says, Ki alecha ragnu kol hayom, we kill on your, we're getting killed on your behalf every day. Zu mila shenitna bashmini. It's referring to bris milah. I guess it was risky to have a bris milah on the 8th day, and we're risking our lives, getting us killed, getting our children killed every day for the sake of the Eibishter. Rab Shimon ben Gamliel ben Lakish, Rab Shimon ben Lakish says, Elu tamidei chachamim shemarin hilcha shchita ba'atzmam. It refers to the act of Talmidei Chachamim, teachers that actually display how to do shchita on their own necks. Really, in order to teach shchita, you should have a nice illustrated book. But if you don't have it, the teachers would teach their students how to do shchita on their own necks. Well, there's al tiftach pele satan, but there's no other way to teach it. The Amar Rava said, Kol mili lechse inish benavshe. You can show anything on your own body as long as it's not dangerous. Bar mishchita, except describing shchita on your own body, you shouldn't do that if you're not a teacher. V'davar achar, or describing leprosy, because again, if you're showing leprosy on your own body, it's like you bring it upon yourself, so to speak, if you're not doing it for the sake of teaching. So those that are doing it for the sake of teaching are risking their lives, so to speak, but in order to teach Torah. So therefore, that was what the pasuk is referring to. On your behalf, we're getting ourselves killed every day. Rav Nachman bar Yitzchak Amar, Elu Talmidei Chachamim. That pasuk refers to teachers, Talmidei Chachamim, shemimisen atzmel divrei Torah. They die, they kill themselves on the words of Torah. Rav Shimon ben Lakish, as the way Rav Shimon ben Lakish explained it. Rav Shimon ben Lakish, ein divrei Torah miskaimim el b'mi shemeim atzma aleihem shenema zois haTorah adam ki yamus v'oya. That means that the Torah is not remain with a person unless you pretend that you're dead. When you're dead, let's say, you have one thing on your head. You don't have anything else. The cell phone is off. Everything is blocked out. That's how Torah it gets learned. That's the real way to learn Torah. So when we say Ki alecha haragnu kol hayom, every day when Talmidei Chachamim sit down and learn, they're killing themselves figuratively, that they cut off the whole world as if they're dead in order to learn Torah properly. The Gemara goes back to the story of Beitar. Amar Rabba Babachon Rabbi Yochanan. Aboim sa'ah, there were 40 pounds, or sa'ah, whatever sa'ah is, the measurement, 40 sa'ah. We go to Nurchas Amarav. Kitzutze tefillin ninsi b'rosh harugei Beitar. They found 40 sa'ah of tefillin boxes that came from the heads of those that were killed in Beitar. Rabbi Yanai Rabbi Shmuel says it wasn't 40 saw. Shalosh kupish shel aboim saw. There were 3 boxes. Each one was 40 saw. So 40 times 3. There was 120 saw boxes full of tefillin boxes. B'masnita Tana, it's reminiscent, by the way, of the concentration camps when you can still see the glasses or the shoes. So when they kept it, let's say in a museum, these were the boxes of tefillin that were worn by the people of Beitar. These were 40 boxes. Each one had 3 saw. So basically, it's still 120. It's just in smaller boxes. But the bottom line is, there's a machlokes between the two opinions whether there were 40 saw of tefillin boxes or 120 saw of tefillin boxes. So the Gemara makes an interesting remark. V'loi pligi, they're not arguing. Had the ratio, the bigger number is for the tefillin shel rosh. In other words, there were 120 saw boxes of tefillin of rosh, because in the way they used to make it, imagine the tefillin shel rosh was bigger than the tefillin shel yad. So therefore, it weighed more, so to speak. Ha the dara, the one that said it was 40 saw, was talking about the tefillin shel yad of the harugei Beitar. So that's an interesting point. The way we don't see it that way. We see the shel rosh is the same size as the shel yad, but in the times of the Gemara, the shel rosh was bigger than the shel yad, and therefore they had different boxes, one for the shel rosh and one for the shel yad. Amar Rab Asi said a tragic thing. Abba kabim, there were 4 kavs moyach of brain matter, smashed brains, nimtzu al even achas, found on 1 stone. Basically, they took babies and smashed them to one stone. So on this stone, there was like a pile of brain matter on one stone. Ula says actually it was Tisha Kabin. It was 9 Kab. Amar Rav Kahana Vitema Shela Mori. Mikra, what's the pasuk? So what's the pasuk that even discusses that? So the pasuk says like this: Bas Bavel, Hashaduda, Bas Bavel Hashaduda, the daughter of Bavel Hashaduda, you are marked for devastation. We're going to get back at you. Ashrei Sheyishamlach, fortunate, the one that's going to pay you back. Ashrei. He's going to take your children, Babylonians, and smash your kids to a rock to take revenge. So if we're begging Haggad to take revenge by whacking their kids to a rock, it must have been that they've done this to us, and that's how we know that this actually happened. It's hard, it's unimaginable, but actually it's not too far along where they used to do that in the camps. B'nai Tzion Hayakarim, the pasuk says the Jewish B'nai Tzion, the sons of Zion Hayakarim, who are precious, Hamuslaim Bapaz, that are comparable to very fine gold. My Muslaim Bapaz, what does it mean? The Jews are comparable to very fine gold. The Jewish people bought a lot of jewelry, right? There's a lot of jewelry. All the Jews are in jewels, and that's what the Yirmiyahu is saying. Two measures of fine gold went to the world. Basically, most of the fine gold is found in Rome. The finest jewelry is in Rome. And the other part is in the rest of the world. So in other words, the Jews don't have the best jewelry in the world. So why does the Navi compare the Jewish people as the finest precious gold? Answers the Gemara, the Jewish people at that time of the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash, each of those children looked as beautiful as fine gold. They were the most beautiful people in the world. Now, the Gemara says a fascinating thing. Mi'ikara, from the very beginning, Chashiva d'Ra'ima have enokit bilyoni d'shpanko m'shamshe irasaya. When they were the high people of Rome, the important people of Rome, when they would have sexual intercourse, they would have, let's say, an image that was on a signet ring that displayed a certain beautiful features. And while they were having relations, they were hoping to create offspring that's going to look like the picture on the ring. From here on, Ma'aseh B'nai Yisrael, they would bring Jewish kids, because the Jewish kids looked so beautiful at the time of the destruction of the first Beis Hamikdash and the destruction of the second Beis Hamikdash. They would tie these kids right by their bed, and have sexual relations with their wife while looking at the Jewish kid. Now the Jewish kid was forced to watch this disgusting act. So one time, one Jewish boy said to his friend, we never learned about this in the Chumash that describes that we're going to be punished in this way. So the other child answered, well, he probably learned, he was in a higher grade. He said, we learned the pasuk that says, Gam kocholi, the kol maka asher lekosa b'sefer HaTorah zois. Any sicknesses and any type of whack that's not written in the Sefer Torah, there's much more that it's not written in the Sefer Torah. In other words, there's certain things are so undescribable, the Chumash says, that the Torah says, I'm not going to describe it for you. What's going to happen? So the kid said, how far am I away from reaching that pasuk? I guess he was the kid that told him about the pasuk was in the higher grade, so he learned it. So the other kid answered, Inged puste upalga, just a column and a half. If a column and a half away, you would have crossed this pasuk, and you So the other kid said, if I would have reached that pasuk, I wouldn't even ask the question. But thank you for telling me about the pasuk. Okay. Amar Rav Yehuda Amar Shmuel Mishum Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Here, the Gemara is describing survivor's guilt. It's a terrible, terrible thing to know that all the kids that you grew up with were killed out and you survived. So the name of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel, he was a survivor of the following event. My diksiv. Why does the pasuk says Einini oilala nafshi mikol benois mikol benois iri? My eye affects my soul because of all the daughters of my city. What does that mean? Arba meas bate kinesias. There were 400 shuls. Haya bekrach Beta that was in Beta. I guess Rav Shimon ben Gamliel lived in Beitar, and there were 400 synagogues. Well, we have that in Lawrence. And each one of the synagogues had 400 teachers. Each one of the 400 teachers had 400 students, a lot of kids. When the enemy went in there to defend themselves, the Jewish kids started fighting with their pens. When the enemy overpowered the school and captured all these kids, they wrapped them up with their scrolls that they were learning, and lit them up on fire. So Rabbi Shimon Gamliel says, when I recall this event, I can't believe I survived from all the other children that did not survive. It's a survivor's guilt. Tana Rabbana, Ma'aseh Rabbi Shua ben Chananya, Shaholach lekrach Godosh b'Romi. Rabbi Shua ben Chananya, he went to a great city in Rome. So you see, they were traveling to Rome from Jerusalem. Amrulai, they told him, Tinik yechad yesh b'beis ha'asurim. There's one child that's still from Israel, who's languishing in jail here in Rome, in this great city. I don't know if it's Rome, but it's one great city in Rome. Yifei Anayim, he's beautiful. The Toiv Raya, he has beautiful eyes. Toiv Raya, he's attractive. The Kutsasayev, Saduris Laitatam, and his hair is curled up in locks. Halach va'am, a beautiful, attractive kid. Halach va'amar al Pesach Asurim. So Reb Shua ben Chanani stood at the door of this jail, and he said the following pasuk: Mi nasan lemshisa Yaakov Yisrael lebaisazim. Who allowed Yaakov to be trampled and Yisrael, the Jewish people, taken into for spoils? This children answered and said, Hashem zuchatanu v'lo avu b'drachav. It's because we sinned against God, and we didn't want God's ways, and we went on our own path. We didn't listen to Torah. So he basically answered Rabbi Shua ben Chanania's call out of a pasuk that says, why did this happen to the Jewish people? And this kid answers, because we did Averis. And so basically, this kid was saying that we should take responsibility of what happened, not blame God. Amas, Rabbi Shua ben Chanania heard this from the jail cell of this kid. He said, I'm so certain that this kid is going to grow up to be a teacher in Yisrael. You see, he's a Jewish leader who takes responsibility. So Rabbi Shua ben Chananya said, I swear, I'm not going to move from here. I'm going to try to redeem him no matter what money they demand for bail. Amru, they said, till he released him with a lot of money. And it wasn't too long that he became a leader of the Jewish people. This kid who came was redeemed from captive from somewhere in Rome, Umani, and his name was Rabbi Shua ben Elisha. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amarav. There's a story about the son and the daughter of Yishmael ben Elisha. This is a story that's captured in a kinnis that we say on Tisha B'Av. They were taken into captivity by two masters. They all came to one place. These two masters, one had the boy and one had the girl. As you know, Rabbi Shmuel ben Elisha was a gorgeous person, so his children were also gorgeous. One said, I have such a slave that there's nobody as beautiful as him as in the entire world. I have a maid that's so beautiful, nobody's like her in beauty. So they didn't realize that brother and sister. Amru, so the two masters who had these slaves said, Boyim and Asim Zelazah, let's marry them off to each other, and we'll divide up the children. They brought the boy and girl into one room. One sat in one corner, the boy sat in one corner, and the girl sat in another corner. The boy said, Ani kohen ben kahanim. I'm a ben kahanim gedolim. My ancestors are from kahanim gedolim. As the shivcha, I should go ahead and marry this slave. He didn't know it's a sister. And this one said, Ani kohenes bas kahanim gedolim. And I say, Eved, I'm a daughter of a kahanim gedolim. I should marry the slave. So ubachu kol halayla. Each one started crying in their own corner of the room the entire night. When the morning star came up, they recognized that they are brothers and sisters. They fell on each other. They burst out in crying, and they were so distraught that they both died. It's unbelievable how they died from that night, just from crying. Yirmiyah saw b'nevuah that this is going to happen. My eyes are flowing with water. Amar Resh Lakish said, there was a lady, her name was Svanyas ben Peniel. That's an odd name. Tzafnas bas Peniel. What was special about this nail? Tzafnas sha'akol tzayfim biyafna. She was a model. Everybody looked at her beauty. So Tzafnas means everybody stared at her. And her name was Bas Peniel, the daughter of Peniel, because she came from the daughter. She was actually the daughter of a Kohen Gadol that served in the Holy of Holies. She was raped by her captors, Kol Halayla. So she was taken into captivity after the Churban of the Beis Hamikdash, and she was raped the entire night. The next day, the ones that abducted her put on 7 pieces of clothing on her and took her out to the marketplace to be sold as a slave. One person said, who was very ugly, he said, I want to see if she's a pretty lady. They told him, Reka, you empty-headed person. If you want to buy it, trust us. Buy it. There's nobody as beautiful as her. The man said, I don't want to purchase it until I see the merchandise. They took off 6 cloaks off her. But the 7th cloak, Karasa, the lady herself, tore it off, and she started rolling in the ashes that were probably on the street. And she cried out to God, if you're not showing sympathy to us, why shouldn't you have Rachmanus on your name that's being disgraced? That's what Yirmiyah lamented, but said, Bas Ami, the daughter of my people, put on a sackcloth, and roll in ashes, as you do when somebody loses his only child. Make a bitter hesped, because the spoiler came suddenly on us. The Yirmiyahu is not saying that the oppressors came on you. He's saying aleinu came on us. Kaviyachol, when the Jew was in Sarah, the spoiler came on us, you and us, and that's what she was saying. This lady saying that although I'm being humiliated, but it's not just me that's being humiliated here; it's me and God is being humiliated here. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav. Rabbi Yehuda said in the name of Rav, why does it say that a person is going to steal his house and each person is going to steal his inheritance? What's that referring to? It's referring to a crazy story. There was a person who was a student, and he fell in love with the wife of his master. He was an apprentice as a cobbler. So he was an apprentice, and he was learning by his master, but he fell for his master's wife. One time, his master needed a loan. I guess he wasn't paid so well. So the student said, send your wife to me, and I'll give the money to her. So the master sent his wife, the teacher sent his wife to pick up the money for the loan from the student. She stayed with him. He stayed with her 3 days. He held her in captive, let's say, for 3 days. And he came back to his master and said to his master, I have bad news for you. The master asked, where's my wife? I sent her off right away. But I heard that kids raped her on the road, and she was fooling around with this kid, beratzon. So basically, this apprentice tried to convince his master that his wife was unfaithful. So the master asked his apprentice, what should I do? So the apprentice says, if you listen to my advice, I want you to give her a divorce. So he said, ksubasa maruba, but she has a large ksuba, and I can't afford to give her a divorce. So the apprentice said, I'm going to give you more money and loan you the money, 10 lakh ksubasa, and give her the ksuba. So this man, the master, the teacher, divorced his wife. So the apprentice married her. When the master had to pay back the loan, for the loan that he borrowed to pay her ksuba, so the apprentice said, "Boy, come and work for me to try to pay your loan back. So take a job by me and become my butler." They were both sitting. In other words, the apprentice with his former wife, married to each other, and eating and drinking. And he was the butler serving them drinks. But there were tears coming down his eye, and falling into the cups that he was about to serve his new masters. For at that moment, after this story, the Gzardim was sealed. The decree was sealed that the Beis Hamikdash was going to be destroyed and the Jewish people will be thrown out of their land. And others say, there are 2 wicks in one lamp. And same idea, 2 wicks with one lady. Anyway, that's how the Gemara ends off the whole story of the Churban Habayis. Let's do another 3-4 minutes and then we'll stop. Just to turn the page. We learned before that the Sikurikain were the IRS secret service agents that carried daggers, and sometimes they would confiscate people's fields in exchange to spare their life. So if a Jewish person gave up his field to the Sikurikain, the Mishnah says that if you go to the Sikurikain and another buyer goes and buys the field from the Sikurikain, so really, he really should return it to the original owner. But if he goes to the owner and buys it from him as well, the Mishnah says that's not a good sale, because the original owner agreed to sell it to you because he didn't want to incite the Sikurikain if he protested. But the Gemara says, Amar Rav, so the mekach is bottled. But if you bought from the husband, from the owner first, and then you went to Sikurikain, the mekach is kayim. That's what the Mishnah said. Amar Rav, loy shanu ela de amar loy leik chazek kni. When do we say that the original owner doesn't agree to this sale? If he told the buyer, yeah, go ahead, take possession of the land and own it, I'm okay with it. Aval bishtar, but if he wrote up a document saying I agree to the sale, kana, then the buyer of the land owns the land, because the Sikurikain sold it to him, and even the original owner wrote up a star agreeing to the sale. Shmuel says af bishtar nami kana, even if the original owner wrote up a document, it still doesn't belong to the buyer until the original owner said, I'm giving you title insurance on this land that it'll never be taken away from you. We go to Amid Bey, Tainzi Kavase, the Reb Shmuel, we learned the Bryce according to Reb Shmuel. Reb Shimon ben Elazar Oime, Lokach Mini Isha, because of Lokach Mini Ish, Mekachayim. Mini Ish, because of Lokach Mini Isha, Mekach Batal. In other words, if you buy a piece of property that a man put aside for his wife's ksuba, and you paid the man for that property, and then you went to the woman and said, listen, I just bought this property off your husband. I'm going to pay you also. I'll double pay. I just want to own this piece of property. And the woman acquiesced and said, okay, I'll take your payment. That sale is still invalid because we'll say that the woman only agreed to the sale just not to anger her husband. But if the woman went ahead and wrote a star that said, I agreed to the sale and I'm giving you title insurance that I'm never going to take it away from you. So therefore, then the sale is effective. So you see that the only way the sale is effective is unless the person shows that he agrees to the sale by saying, I'm giving you title insurance and it's yours. Name it to have a tiyufte de Rav. Will you say that this is a refutation against Rav? Amalach Rav. Rav said, Maya chrayas name star. The chrayas means star, which means that he wrote up a document. He didn't guarantee that it's hers. He didn't guarantee a title insurance, but he wrote up a star saying that he agrees to the sale. That's enough to show that he is valid with the sale and that the buyer who purchased it will be able to keep the land. Okay, we'll just stop here. As a sham. The Gemara just continues just a few more lines. The Gemara discusses, we learned that if you bought from a sikar rikain, the sikar rikain was the one that confiscated a field. So the halacha was that the Mishnah said that when you buy from the sikar rikain, you're probably paying 75% in value of what the land is worth, simply because the sikar rikain confiscated the field for free. So he's going to sell it to you 75% of value. So you pay him 75% and you pay the owner, the original owner, 25%, and then the sale is valid. That's the halacha. That's what the Mishnah says. To make the sale valid, you have to pay 25% to the owner. So let's say a buyer number one bought from the sikar rikain. We don't know for sure that he actually paid 25% to the original owner. But the original owner saw how the purchaser from the sikar rikain was in this field for 3 years, eating peiros, working the field as if it's his. And then he sold it to buyer number two. So the second, the original owner can't go to the second owner, to the second purchaser and say, I didn't get my 25%, because we assume that the first owner already paid the 25%, so the second purchaser doesn't have to pay anything to the original owner, although it was confiscated from the original owner by the sikar rikain. So the Gemara says, hey, Kadamba, what's the case? Does he claim? That means the second purchaser claimed, and he says, that the first owner purchased it from you. In other words, he gave you your 25%. Safili Rishinami, even if he didn't sell it to somebody else, by the first owner, if you go over to the first owner and you say, I didn't get my 25%, then the first owner will say that I gave you the 25% because, I don't have proof. The proof is that I was here working this field 3 years and you said nothing. So it must be that you received your 25%. I didn't have to keep my proof that I gave you the 25%. I lost it. So therefore, that you don't have any claims against me. So if that's the case, so if that's the case, then there's no novelty to that. If the second purchaser does not claim that the first owner gave 25%, the Amar bidach sabna, and he does not taina, the first owner gave you 25%. Even then, the second owner should not be able to keep the field. He should have to pay the original owner the 25%. Amar Rav Sheshes says, really the case is talking about the loy ka tain lay, that the second purchaser is not claiming that the first purchaser actually paid that 25% to you. But in this scenario, we would claim on his behalf. Why? Because he's not supposed to know anything. He doesn't have to know everything. He knows that the first purchaser bought it from the sikar rikain and worked that field for 3 years. So he has a chazak on that field. So even if the first purchaser died, his yarshim, his inheritors, don't have to pay 25%. And even if the first purchaser did not die, but sold it to somebody else, the second purchaser does not have to pay 25%, even if he doesn't say that the first purchaser paid you the 25%. Even if he says, I'm not sure, Bezdin's going to say it on his behalf, because the fact is that the first purchaser, after buying it from the Sikar Rikaim, was actually working that field for 3 years. So it must be that he paid the 25%, because if during those 3 years he did not pay the 25%, the original owner would have said something. The idach, but if it's dealing with the first owner, and let's say it's 10 years, and the first owner lost proof that he paid the 25%, and he's working the field for 10 years, if he would claim that I paid you back in, then he wins. The time, but if he's not going to claim that I paid you back, then he loses law. He doesn't lose the time law. Then he doesn't. Then he would lose that. Then he would have to pay the 25%. We're not going to claim it on his behalf. Tana Rabbanim, the rabbis taught haba machmas chayv machmas amparos. Someone who because of a debt or because of a unjust seizure. In other words, until now we're dealing with sikarikoin, which somehow were probably secret agents from the government that were allowed to take over people's property under the fear of death. But if a plain person who's not a member of the government just confiscates a field because you owed him money, or he's just takes an unjust seizure, he's part of a gang, but a lawless gang, so then there's no din sikarikain. In other words, whoever purchases it from these people, it's like buying stolen items. So the sale is invalid. It's like buying something on the subway and you know the guy stole it. So the sale is invalid. But now this doesn't make sense. But if it stayed 12 months, then the sale is valid. So you could ask you just told you just said that the sale is not like sikarika, where the sale could be valid as long as you pay 25% to the original owner. You say there is no sikarika. If somebody just unjustly seizes your property, and no matter how long he stays on that field, eventually it's still the original owner's field, and whoever purchases from that person, is the sale would be invalid. So the Gemara says like this. You have to read the Brisa this way. Hachi kama sikirakin atzma tzricha shetisha yid beis chodesh. By the sikarikin atzma, the Secret Service agents, right? The Sikari agents, if only it has to stay by them 12 months, then if you purchase it after 12 months, then the sale is valid as long as you give 25% to the original owner. But during the first 12 months that the Sikarikain has possession of that property, if you buy it from the Sikarikain, the sale is invalid because the original owner didn't give up hope and didn't fully give it with his full heart to Sikarikain. And he's hoping that one day this government is going to fall and he's been able to retake his property. It's only after it stayed in the possession of the Sikarikain, then we say that, look, if the Sikarikain sells it to somebody else, that somebody else, the sale is valid as long as he will pay the original owner 25%. Amar Rav Yosef said, Naktinen, we have a tradition. Ein ampares b'Bavel. There is no such a thing called ampares in Bavel. There's no such a thing. They don't confiscate. There's no unjust seizures in Bavel. No one steals land in Bavel. So the Gemara says, what does that mean? We see people stealing land all the time. There was no deed records. It was very difficult to determine who owns what. Ella, so what did Rabbi Yosef mean? Ein din on parais b'Bavel. There's no halacha on parais b'Bavel. That means if someone unjustly seizes somebody else's property in Bavel, somebody who purchases it from that person can keep it. The sale is valid because my tama. What's the reason? It's like the USA. If somebody unjustly seized your property, you have a way to go to the government and claim it back. And the fact that you did not claim it back, it's almost as if you gifted it to the ampares, to the person that seized your property. So if that ampares would sell it to somebody else, the sale would be valid. That's what the Gemara says. Since there's a honest government, and he didn't complain and make a lawsuit that somebody unjustly seized his property, he must forgave him and let the Amparis keep the property, and therefore, if someone would buy it from the Amparis, it would be his. The sale would be valid. One more piece of the Gemara. Gildel bar Eli, Kabel Arab Betaxa B'nei Baga. There are people who lived in a valley. Imagine, first of all, in rentals, when somebody, let's say, rents a duplex apartment that's shared with 5 people, so one person, they all pay one rent to the landlord, right? But if it had 5 bedrooms, that's how it works. That they all give it to one guy, and one guy pays the landlord. The same thing, they had an area of land that was divided, let's say, into 5 different properties, and one person, and they would all give it and pay taxes to the government. So one of them abandoned his share, so he didn't pay his share of taxes. So Gidel Bari Eli stepped in, and he paid his taxes. But in exchange for that, why did he do that? One guy left the agreement. The reason why he did it is because he was now going to eat the fruits of that field that the person abandoned. So he paid the taxes, but now he can eat the fruits of that field. So Agdim v'Yov Zuzah the Tlashenin. He not only paid the taxes of 1 year, he advanced paid taxes on behalf of this field for 3 years. So not only did he pay his own share of taxes, he paid the share of the person who abandoned his field. He paid his taxes in advance for 3 years. So one of the original owner, the original person who worked that field, came back and said, you know what? I changed my mind. I want to pay my own taxes and my own share of the taxes and eat the fruits of the field. Well, you're not getting, once you give money to taxes, you're not getting it back. Gidel Bari Eloi advance paid the taxes. Amrle, first of all, the guy said, Shata Kamais Diavda Achlan. I agree that you paid the first year of yak taxes, so you can eat the fruits of that field because I abandoned my field and you went ahead and paid the taxes on my behalf. Hashta Anan Yavinan Anan Achlinam. But now, who asked you to pay in advance 3 years out of taxes? I came back. I want to pay my own taxes and I want to eat from the fruits of this field. I came back. Also, the comedy of Papa, so they came in front of Rav Papa. He wanted to authorize to repossess the property against the people of Bnei Baga. In other words, that person, he wanted to repossess that property in order to pay back Gidel Bari Eli. He advanced paid taxes. So he wanted to collect back the taxes that he paid from the person that came back to repossess his field. Amalei Rav Huna Barei Rav Yeshua Rav Papa Imkain Asisa Sikarikain. You're making Sikarikain in Bavel. Just like in Sikarikain, we said there's no Sikarikain in Bavel. In other words, that there's no sales that work forever. In other words, if someone confiscates a field, then we say that the owner, the original owner, could buy it, could claim that he never really gave it up for seizure. He didn't really give it to that person that took over his field. So we would say that whatever you did is invalid. But if you're saying that this was a valid transaction, that what Gidel Bari Eli did was valid, and you're trying to collect it back, you're making Sikarika in Bavel. And that's not, we say there is no din Sikarika in Bavel. Ella Amarav, because the bottom line is, Gidel Bari Eli overstepped boundaries by paying somebody else's taxes and nobody asked them to. So how could you come back now and claim that the people owe you because you paid taxes? You weren't even, there was no request that you should pay somebody's taxes in advance. He lost his money. Gidel Bari Eli overstepped. It's as if he's put his money on the deer of a horn, which means that the deer runs away and you lost your money. So that's what you did. You stepped in, you wanted to do a good thing, and you were hoping that he would never come back. But now that he came back, you advance paid taxes for no reason, and therefore you lost your money, Gidel Bari Eli. And this person could retake possession of his field and pay his own taxes and eat the fruits of the field and not have to pay Gidel Bari Eli for his losses. Okay, we'll stop here. This ends Daf Nun Ches Amid Beis.